I guess it's this big. If there's a little screen that comes up, I better put myself up.
Okay, Pepper sent this in. It's from the New York Times. I don't know if any of you saw this. Kind of interesting. It's the front piece. So if you're interested in more details of our nation of immigrants looking where the different routes are, uh, and um, this, I think, is very interesting. This is a counterintuitive and a bit of good news, although not necessarily for Europe. Looking at the data, in some studies and some ways of cutting the data, America is safer than Europe. Not in this one, where you look at individual cities. Chicago is the most violent. Los Angeles is second. New York is uh, down there, and they're all worse than Berlin and Paris and London. But if you look at different ways, um, you can see that Paris, in terms of personal robbery, is worse. Vehicle theft, Chicago and Los Angeles lead, but London and Berlin, they're a distant second and third, but they're having their problems. Uh, and there's optimism. Um, the murder rates, if you look at both London and New York, are lower than at any time since record keeping began. That's a kind of counterintuitive. Um, uh, Personal robbery in Paris may look high, but it's decreased to half of what it was. Um, the bottom line is that cities in both Europe and America are safer. This data uh, uh, kind of contradicts that, but London is having problems, and Berlin as well when it comes to domestic burglary and business robbery. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. The FBI confirms this bit of good news. So there you are. Here's some bad news. Um, Measles, they've recently, for us doctors, they've recently confused things even more with new vaccine uh, orders. And this is what the confusion is rendering is measles down here. Um, for the last 25 years, you can see it's come off of its nice low rate and it is rising. I don't know if I remember, I think some of us remember in the 50s, polio was the scourge. Our mothers were uh, worried sick about us getting polio. So this business about vaccine uh, uh, having side effects, it's just uh, crazy. We're so far ahead of where we were, and let's hope MMR has been good. Polio is great. But if we're not vigilant, all this could go away. Um, all right. So that's Homer. Have you unmuted yourself, Homer?
Yeah, I saw the same report in the paper this morning that the murder rate is as low as it's been since 1955 in the US, but the rate of mass murders, multiple shootings at the same time, has been constant or even rising slightly.
That's right. That's right. And that's very dispiriting,
Yeah.
for sure. Um, okay. All right. So I just have been thinking a lot about where we're going to go in the future, and I think I'm going to make an attempt to get us back into California history as kind of our main feature. We'll still do various uh, uh, contributions, data, graphs, anything you all want to present. We'll still have time at the beginning, but I think the fallback is I want to start moving us along on the history of California because we all love California.
Yeah.
I think, and we should celebrate, and there is a lot to celebrate. I was talking to Ramsey about this, and Ramsey, as unsentimental as he is, says he tears up when he hears Tony Bennett's "I left my heart in San Francisco." I think if we think back on our the lives that we've lived and how much San Francisco has meant to us, I think I'd like to do a deep dive in the history of San Francisco and what made it the way it was. Of course, there have been in our lifetime very bad periods. And there's one book that we can dive deep into, and that's The Season of the Witch, which starts with everything that went wrong starting in the 60s when Homer and I were in med school in San Francisco. And that book is sobering, but there's kind of a recovery. And then there's another book, 49 Views of San Francisco by Gary Kamaya. And Rudy and I and Ramsey and another couple, we took a walk up Telegraph Hill with Gary Kamaya. He even took us to his home. And that book celebrates San Francisco, 49 Views of San Francisco. So there's a lot of material. And I'm thinking, unless I hear a lot of dissent, that I'd like to at least try to dive back into California, but in particular San Francisco. And there's a natural segue from Junipero Serra, who I hope we'll get to today. There is a segue from Junipero Serra. He never went to San Francisco. So, but his lifelong friend, they lived in Mallorca together. And his lifelong friend, Francisco Palau, did go to San Francisco. And he, in fact, set up Mission Dolores. And he was the fellow that administered the last rites to Junipero Serra, Francisco Palau. So I hope we can get to him
Okay.
sometime today. That's my thinking. Unfortunately, it won't be next week because I have my cataract surgery next week. But the week after that, I hope we can go deeper. But let me see if I can get us at least from Hapsburg, Spain, to California. So the Hapsburgs, I'm going to do this really, really quick. Interrupt me if I'm not clear, but I'm trying to be super concise. The big guy that took over from Fernando and Isabella was their grandson, Charles V. It's confusing. He's Charles V of the Holy Roman Empire, but he's Charles I of Spain. So I'm going to use Charles I to refer to him. And he was the guy. There was a lot going on. He was a Habsburg because of intermarriage. The Habsburgs had consolidated virtually all the power in Europe. Charles the First was Charles V of the Holy Roman Empire, so Germany, and his goal was basically to contain France, to control trade routes, and all of a sudden he's in control of the New World. So he's got a lot of wealth. And it's a good thing because the Silk Road has been closed by the Ottomans. And so they come into this story in a few minutes. So he expanded to the New World at the whole time, maintaining nominal control over most of Europe except for France. And then he could see that it was tenuous to have such a large empire. So he divided the Spanish Empire into two. So one was he kept control of Spain and the New World, and he gave his brother Austro-Hungary and the Holy Roman Empire. So his brother is Ferdinand the First, and from then on, the empire is going to be divided into two. Charles the First's son, Philip II, we're going to hear a lot about. And the poor Ferdinand, he's got to go and try to figure out what to do with the Ottomans who have invaded Hungary. So Philip II and his uncle Ferdinando divided Spain into the east and the western part, which is also attached to the New World. I know I'm going awful fast. Just a review and link it, because we're all familiar with the English monarchy and Henry VIII and his story. Well, it's interconnected very tightly with Spain. If you'll remember, Philip II marries Henry's daughter, Bloody Mary, the daughter of Catherine of Aragon. And he finally he has Elizabeth by Anne Boleyn after he divorces Catherine. But then he still wants a boy, so he after he beheads poor Anne, he gets Jane Seymour, who gives him Edward VI. So finally, Henry has a boy, Henry VI. Jane Seymour, after giving birth, dies 12 days later. There's a lot of death going on. And Edward himself dies 6 years later after ascending the throne. He has a cousin, Lady Jane Grey, and the Protestants try to put her on the throne. But there was a general rebellion. It was just too irregular. And Britain, the nobles realized, hey, we can't have this. We've got to have some order. Otherwise, we'll have civil wars. So they insist that Mary, Philip's the second to-be wife, they're not married yet, but as soon as they put her on the throne, Philip marries her. So now you have the English and the Spanish throne tightly locked. When Edward VI dies, probably of a combination of TB and measles, told you a lot of dying, he tries to put his cousin, Lady Jane Grey, on the throne. There's a rebellion, and Mary is put on the throne, and she takes Lady Jane Grey and executes her. And that's why she's called Bloody Mary. So now she's on the throne with Philip II of Spain. So we'll come to Elizabeth in just a second because it's just a review. Henry marries Catherine of Aragon. Anne Boleyn is executed. Lady Jane Seymour gives him a son, finally, Edward VI. He dies, tries to put Lady Jane Grey on the throne. Mary and the nobles rebel. That's just too irregular. So the Bloody Mary executes Lady Jane Grey. And finally, though, poor Mary, she only lasts 5 years herself. It was probably ovarian cancer. So all of a sudden, Francis II is a widower, and the Protestant Elizabeth I, Anne Boleyn's daughter, takes the throne, and guess what? Elizabeth and Philip are going to fight like crazy with big consequences. So Philip obviously is very disappointed. He's lost his connection to the British throne, and he can't stand the idea that Elizabeth is on the throne. So Philip II, he's of course got all the minds from the New World, and he builds up a huge budget surplus. So what does he do with it? Uh, Now he could afford to quarrel with the British and Elizabeth the First, and he does. He moves the capital from Toledo, where it had been since the Visigoths, to Madrid. Madrid wasn't anything until Philip II moved the capital there. And he was glad to move it to Madrid from Toledo because the Vatican had too much influence in Toledo. So his idea for Madrid was to escape the Vatican. And he also built Escorial outside of Madrid as a alternative to the Vatican, interestingly enough. And this is where our neighbor's family happens to live. So Philip then has a success. He turns on the Ottoman Empire, and this is his biggest military success. In 1571, he defeats them at the Battle of Lepanto. And here he's in league with the other branch of the Hapsburgs from the Holy Roman Empire to defeat the Ottomans, the first big victory. And it was quite a battle, you can see. But the combined forces of Spanish ships and Austro-Hungarian ships did it. But lurking in the background are the religious wars. And Spain, especially Philip II, they volunteer to fight the religious wars on behalf of the Vatican. And Spain becomes and considers itself the defender of the faith. And this is still, even though they start losing power in the 1600s and especially the 1700s, they still fancy themselves as the defenders of the faith in the religious wars. A quick word about Mary, Queen of Scots. So she was Catholic, and she was being manipulated by the Spanish and other Catholics to try to get her to take eventually to get the throne. Elizabeth was a virgin queen, didn't have any kids, and so they were putting a lot of stock in getting a Catholic back on the throne to replace Bloody Mary. So Queen Elizabeth famously had her executed. There's movies about this. I remember one with Glenda Jackson as Elizabeth. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back for Philip. Philip II is sitting there in Madrid, so unhappy that he lost his connection to the English throne. And so what does he do? He mounts the Spanish Armada. So that's where the Spanish Armada fits in with all this. And Sir Francis Drake and other nimble captains of ships outwits the Spanish Armada, which is larger and less mobile. And then, if that's not complicated enough, the Dutch see a chance to revolt. They are Northern European Protestants, Calvinists, and they ally with England and revolt against Spain. Remember, Spain controlled them from the Hapsburg days. So this long, draining war taxes everybody. And then come the French wars of religion. If that's not enough, Spain supports the Catholics against the French Protestants. And at one point, Philip II even claimed the French throne. And you can see here the borderlands and the Basque and Catalonia. We were down in this territory on our vacation. So all this culminated in the 30 Years' War. Spain supported their Austrian Habsburg relatives against the Protestant states. The big battlefield was in Germany, and this was the last great religious war in Europe. And this is how Spain basically lost their influence as one of the big powers. In the Treaty of Westphalia, there was a agreement that, hey, we're not going to have any more religious wars. The religion of the prince of your territory, that's the state religion, and nobody else is going to fight you over what the prince declares. Notice over here the Ottomans are still lurking around. And so the end of the western branch of the Habsburg was Charles II. And there are many reasons that Spain lost its empire, but inbreeding was the biggest thing. Charles II couldn't have kids, number one. You can see his facial features. He's probably inbred. And in the 11 marriages between 1450 and 1660, that's 200 years, most contain some element of consanguinity. In other words, there was cousin marriages. So that's really what finally did in the Habsburgs. Then he finishes in 1700. And the Habsburgs had been on the throne 184 years, but no war and no more kids. And then they have the War of Spanish Succession. And the Habsburgs continue in the East, in Austro-Hungary. And who takes over for the failed Habsburgs? The Bourbons of France. So from now on, we'll be talking about the Bourbons. People were a little nervous about the Bourbons having France and Spain getting away in the balance of power. But by then, Spain was a minor power, and France was the major. This is Philip the Fifth, Bourbon. I won't go into the War of Spanish Succession. I'm trying to make this as brief as possible. The current king, by the way, is Philip the Sixth. His father was Juan Carlos, who was forced to abdicate in favor of Philip VI in 2014. And he's been banished from Spain and is living, I don't know if he still is, but was living in the Gulf states as a disgraced king of Spain. And it was his father, this is his father as a young man. It was his association with Franco and corruption that did him in. All right, so I said I'd get to California, and here we are. Um, uh, the Spanish, of course, conquered Montezuma and Mexico City, and shortly after, Cabrillo, and we know the Cabrillo Highway. Cabrillo came up from Mexico along the coast in 1540. There was another guy, Vizcano, who came up as far as Monterey in 1603, but neither of these established settlements. That was left to Junipero Serra in 1770. But there had been a couple of people coming up. And you can see California is terra incognito. Nobody had settled there. They hadn't even discovered the San Francisco Bay. That's going to be discovered in a few minutes. Enter Charles III. Okay, so we went from the great Charles I, the failed Charles II, and now this is the best bourbon of all. Basically, a combination of a French and Spanish dynasty. And Charles III was really quite capable. He tried to reverse the 150-year Spanish decline. The Capetian dynasty, maybe Homer can tell us about that, but not certainly not the mainstream. But he was a practicing enlightened absolutist. It's kind of a contradiction in terms. And he limited the power of the church and promoted science. And he corresponded with George Washington, even offering him livestock. So from our experience in Madrid, he upgraded the Plaza Mayor, which you can see is a pretty small plaza, and it certainly had outgrown. It had been renovated a couple of times, but we stayed in a place right there. But what Charles III did is he built Puerto del Sol. And you can see it's a huge plaza, and right in the middle is Charles III. And I walked through there and looked up and saw Charles III, and I said, that's the guy that sent Junipero Serra to California. So Serra, though a Franciscan, was very much part of the Inquisition. And he spent 9 years in Mexico City serving the Inquisition. The interesting contradiction is Charles III. He finally loses patience with the Jesuits, even though they are also of the Enlightenment. He thought that they were not sufficiently loyal to him. And even though he agreed with them in philosophy, their power was too much. So he just very quickly and decisively threw them out. And then he says, now who am I going to put in? Especially in Baja California, which was pretty well established, and maybe to try to get into Upper California. And he turned to Junipero Serra to replace the Jesuits. Just a reminder, what is the ideology of conquest at the time? There was a big debate, you'll remember, between a guy named Sepulveda and Bartolome de las Casas. And they debated the ethics of Spanish colonization quite a long time before Junipero Serra. And the de las Casas basically won the argument. It's much more complicated. I'm going through this super fast. But he basically won the argument, and Native Americans were considered fully human, fully rational. And we've talked about this in the past, that's maybe more than can be said of the English and the French, although it's complicated. I grant you that. So Native Americans are gente de razón, people of reason. And so there was a promise of assimilation. And Junipero Serra was very much in that camp. It could have been worse. I know that there's a lot of controversy, and I hope we'll have a chance in future sessions to talk more about Junipero Serra. But he very much believed that Native Americans were people of reason. So that was the ideological arguments for settling California, but there was a geopolitical one as well. And it was probably what was more important to Charles III. It was the Russians. And also the British, and maybe he had some concern about Americans, but at that time they were still 13 colonies. But he thought that his reach to protect the New World from Russians had to be this large area. And when we were traveling up in Alaska, we ran across the trail of some Spanish explorers who'd been up in Alaska. It was very surprising, very interesting. So what were the Russians there for? They were there for otter pelts. They were there for fur. That was it. And they even kidnapped Alaskan natives to and forced them to help them get pelts, otter pelts. And so this was very much upper mind for Charles III. And for those of you that weren't here earlier, there was a fur rush in the Delta beginning in the 1790s. And the Spanish were very much worried that the Russians were going to be pulled down to the fur rush in the Delta. Bear in mind, John Jacob Astor, who made a fortune in furs, which he traded to China. That's how he made his nest egg and established himself as a East Coast millionaire up in Oregon. And it was all part of a general fur rush to the West Coast. So who did Charles III appoint? As Visitor General, he appointed a guy named Galvez. And he tasked him with go and find somebody to settle California. And on their way up, they need to escort the Jesuits out of Baja California. There had been a very enterprising a pioneer named Kino, Francisco Kino, who was a Jesuit, and he had been responsible for single-handedly settling Baja California, which had, I think, 10 or 11 missions itself. But those Jesuits were being told to leave. This guy came in. There was some question about his stability, but he called Serra. He recognized talent, and after 20 years of waiting in Mexico, Serra had arrived there in 1749. He was very eager to get up to Alta California and save souls on a virgin frontier. In sum, the Spanish were genuine defenders of the faith. They saw themselves as the champions of Catholicism. They went into close league with the papacy after initial suspicion of the papacy, and they bolstered their fight, the papacy's fight against the the Reformation, and they launched a counter-Reformation against Protestants. Portola, a familiar name in the Bay Area, he had been appointed the governor along with Junipero Serra as the head of the religious wing. And he sent both Portola and Serra to throw out the Jesuits and take over and repopulate the missions. So this is an interesting question. This is a very good book by a guy named Stephen Hackle called Junipero Serra, California's Founding Father. And is that warranted? I think when we hear the whole story, you'll agree that probably it is. Real quick on Junipero Serra's background. He's from Mallorca here, along with Francisco Palau. And as I said earlier, Francisco Palau had independently established the San Francisco Mission Dolores. He had returned with the De Anza expedition, which is totally separate from Junipero Serra. And he was the one that gave the last rites to Junipero Serra. They had arrived together in Veracruz in 1749, and they walked to Mexico City. Uh, uh, and so I think this is probably a good place to stop. I know it was kind of a whirlwind um, tour, but next time I think we can get Junipero Serra solidly in, of all places, Carmel, California. That's where his headquarters are going to be. And so, how does he get from walking in Veracruz and getting bit by a spider, which caused him a lifelong ulcer? How does he get to setting up a mission in Carmel, California? Have any of you ever? I'll end and ask if any of you have ever been to Carmel.
Carl Mission.
Yes.
Yes. Lots.
Well, of course.
The mission.
Everybody.
Everybody's been to the mission.
Yes.
Yeah, it's quite something. I'll have some pictures at the end when we get all the way to California. First, we got to get Junipero Serra up to San Diego, which is no easy feat, and the expedition almost ends there. But he and Portola eventually get to Monterey and then expand to Carmel, and that's kind of where we'll start next week.
Question.
Yes.
I saw that picture of the Habsburg Empire when it got broken up. It's like it was several colors, like it just broke up into a whole bunch of little pieces. Did it? And who were those pieces?
Well, it did break up, and it was the Holy Roman Empire, and then eventually the Holy Roman Empire was reassembled and eventually evolved into the Austro-Hungarian Empire. But not before they had to fight a war with Bismarck. Bismarck established Germany, and the remnant of that was the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And these were the people that bought us World War I when they wanted to take over Bosnia-Herzegovina. Yeah, Jim.
Is there a session next week or not?
No session because I got my.
You just said that you would continue next week, so I got confused.
My bad. 2 weeks.
So, John, you've taught us to admire Father Kino, the Jesuit present in Baja.
Right.
I've always thought it was very sad that Junipero Serra replaced Kino as the head of establishing missions. Because, I mean, if you referred us to the movie, The Mission, that showed a great difference between the Jesuit approach and the Dominican approach to native peoples. Am I off base here?
Well, the whole problem was with Charles I didn't trust the Jesuits, and that was more important than everything else.
But
So-
does data support a difference in, I don't know, mortality of native peoples under Kino's leadership in Baja and Serra's leadership in California?
I don't think so. I think germs were not discriminatory. I think both types of missions unwittingly spread a lot of communicable disease. So I don't think so. They just had no idea. It was centuries before the germ theory.
Sure.
And I think from our point of view, Kino, as a true scientist and man of the Enlightenment, would have been much nicer to have a beer with than Junipero Serra. But you can't make the medical argument. Jim.
Hey, John,
Lower my hand.
Hey, John, this is Tom. Got a question for you. You earlier on, you showed a picture, a photograph of the Spanish Vatican. Did you visit that place?
Yes, we did.
And let me ask you this: how long did it take to build that thing?
They had this is just a measure of how much wealth they had. They had so much wealth that they could take decades and decades to build that thing. And it's a shadow of what it was when they were just full of the riches of gold and silver from the mines of Potosi and Mexico. And yeah.
I mean, that place was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, just looking at the picture.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. And we walked around in it, and it was amazing. I think it's pretty much hollowed out now and almost kind of ghostly in a way. But Rudy, that's where Mackenzie's father lives. Mackenzie's half sister went to school at the Escorial. They had a teaching wing of that establishment. To go to school in a place that gigantic must have been challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we'll start next week or no, 2 weeks.
After.
2 weeks, and we'll get up to Junipero Serra, and then right after that we'll do the De Anza party, because the De Anza party was the one that established San Francisco, not Junipero Serra. But his sidekick, Francisco Palau, helped De Anza start San Francisco. So it's an interesting twist. Okay. See you in 2 weeks.